Welcome back to Freedom Forest, and today we're going to give you a little tour and an update of what we're growing in our polytunnels.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but we are finding this to be quite a challenging year for growing. We seem to be prime target for predators, and the weather conditions that we're having are making things a little bit challenging. But our polytunnels have been getting lots of love and care and attention, and they are looking good. So this is tunnel 1 or T1, and we've got these nets on the doors not to keep the insects out, but actually to keep the rabbits out, because even though we had these low level fences on here, we actually had a rabbit get into this tunnel right at the beginning of the season and caused havoc digging around our newly planted plants in here. And so yeah, this was our solution here. But what we are trying to do during the day and when we're around is just leave these twisted out a bit so that we can let the beneficial insects in and out of the tunnels as well. So as you can see, there is quite a lot going on in this tunnel, and it's looking pretty healthy at the moment considering the weather conditions we've had. Our other growing areas aren't actually looking as lush and green as it is in our tunnels, because obviously we're watering our tunnels really regularly, but we haven't got the water to do that on all of the beds outside here. But the tunnels always get watered, so they're looking really good. So let's take you around and have a little talk about what we've got in here. So in each of the corners, the 4 corners of the tunnel, we've got these Cape gooseberry plants, and these have been growing perennially for us in the polytunnels. These plants are 3 years old now. And if you saw a recent video this year about how we gave this polytunnel a Back to Eden makeover, you might know that we actually dug these particular Cape gooseberries out from all along here because they were planted where the path actually is now. And we root pruned them, we cut them right back, and then we replanted them. And so far, I think we've only had to change one. So they're growing, that one particularly is growing really strong. So we think we're going to get some lovely Cape gooseberries still from our 3-year-old plants, which is awesome. We love the Cape gooseberries. These beautiful strong growing plants here are yard-long cucumbers, and they are forming up lovely. Believe it or not, I actually pruned and tidied that one only a few days ago, and they just grow amazingly strong at this time of year. So we've got lots of a real assortment of stuff in here. Down here we've got 2 different types of spinach. This is New Zealand spinach, and I absolutely love it. It does grow outside as well, but I thought I'd trial it in the polytunnel this year because I found in the past it doesn't grow, it doesn't always grow really strongly outside. Certainly not compared to how it used to grow for me in its native country, New Zealand. So yeah, I tried some in here and it is looking really good. And this beautiful plant here is called Malabar spinach, and this is something we've tried new this year. It was recommended to me by an old friend from New Zealand actually. He said it likes lots of heat, so we decided to plant it in the tunnels. It's a climbing spinach and it is beautiful, so we've just recently started enjoying the really succulent leaves from that one. All down the back here we've got 2 different sorts of aubergines, and they're settling in nicely. We've got flowers just starting to form up. And one thing about the aubergines that it took me a couple of years to cotton onto is that aubergines can actually be side shooted as well, a bit like tomatoes. And yeah, I didn't realise this when I first started growing them and wondered why I had such hectic bushy plants. But yeah, this year I'm trying to stay a bit more on top of the side shooting. I can see one here that I've missed though. So this one just needs to be twisted off. And then as much as we can, we just try and sort of chop and drop and leave any smaller prunings just on top of the wood chip to break down and give back to the soil. If we've had a large cut back, then we will clear some of the bigger piles of stuff, but yeah, leaving what we can. I'm here, and this is something that I'm trialing again for the first time. This is chickpeas, and they weren't very happy when I first planted them in the tunnel. They had all of this kind of yellowing, like you can see on this weaker plant here, but they're actually starting to settle in and grow quite nicely. And I've not grown chickpeas before, we've not grown chickpeas before. And I literally just soaked and sprouted these from some organic chickpeas that I had at home. So a bit of a trial. We like to try lots of new things, see what happens. So yeah, we'll let you know in future videos how these go. And then mostly all along this front edge here, I've got all of my sweeter peppers. I think there are a few cayenne peppers dotted in here, but mostly this side is sweet peppers. And the peppers and the chilies have been a little bit of a problem this year. I planted them out when they were really small, and I think they were maybe a little bit too small. And they've really struggled to get established. We actually lost quite a few to start with, I think to wood lice. Wood lice were just munching at the stems, and yeah, so we lost quite a lot of chilies and peppers, but they are coming on slowly, so I'm not giving up on them yet. And as we come down here, these are our red pointy peppers down here, and some of these are starting to finally get some nice size going on them. I think this is our strongest plant actually here. This one's looking lovely. So if they can all catch up and be like this one, we'll be happy. But yeah, bit of a challenge with the peppers and chilies this year, but still, fingers crossed, we will get a crop. And dotted around, you might see we've got some nasturtiums, and we've been growing in this tunnel for 3 years now. And I think the saying goes, you only ever plant a nasturtium once. And I can say, even despite this polytunnel having a really big makeover, going from horrible plastic weed membrane because we had such strong growth of bracken in here, even despite the complete makeover, the nasturtiums have still been self-seeding and doing their thing. I haven't planted any since the very first one that I put in here, and they are beautiful, so we just let them, as long as they're not smothering anything too much. There is a pepper behind there. We let them do their thing. The leaves are beautiful. This is a variegated variety, and you can eat the leaves and the flowers, so they are a great addition to salads. Through the middle run of my tunnel, as you can see, this is the tomato alley, and I've got 3 different varieties of tomatoes growing in this tunnel. I've got Brandywine, Cherokee, which is a big beefsteak, beautiful, like quite a dark beefsteak tomato. And actually you can see we've got some lovely ones forming up here, and you can see how it's going to have that patterning through the top where the tone of the tomato changes. Yeah, Brandywine, Cherokee, and then a yellow. It's meant to be an early variety. I think it's Sun Gold or Sun Baby. I'll have to double check that one. But yeah, the tomatoes are growing really strongly. They always take a few weeks, we find, to get settled in when we transplant them, but they're beautiful, they're lush. We have to side shoot them every few days. I only did these a few days ago, but I can see some massive side shoots already. It is best to pop these out when they're small, but you can just pinch your side shoots out and make sure you don't get a multi-headed tomato. Something else that I'm really excited about in here, I did grow a small clump of it last year, but nowhere near enough. I'm trying to do a large quantity of holy basil, or Tulsi you might know it as. And Tulsi is an adaptogen, which is something that works with our body and gives us loads of goodness. And it's great. You can just dry it out and use it in teas, or you can tincture it and have it as a herbal medicine or a supplement, or just something that's going to give you a really healthy boost. So this is a run of plugs that I actually only planted out the other day. Hopefully it's not too late. It says to sow Tulsi from April, but I actually found my later sowings, this was actually a sowing from June, I found my later sowings have been growing stronger. So hopefully in the polytunnel, just having planted them out last weekend will be really good. I have actually got some slightly more mature plants up this end, which we'll show you in just a second. So down this side, we've got some more native spinach just hiding here next to this Cape gooseberry. And again, as you can see, another little nasturtium poking its head up there. Along the back, these plants that you see sprawling across the beds at ground level, they are our watermelons, and we saved our own watermelon seed last year, so we've got some from fresh seed and some from saved seed. So far they're looking good. We've got watermelons in both the tunnels this year. We've doubled our growth, so we're really excited about that because they grew well, but I'm sure Dan will tell you more about those when he takes you into the next tunnel. Here at the end, this is loofahs, and last year we grew loofahs for the first time. Loofahs are edible. You can use them a little bit like a courgette when they're young, but we are predominantly growing them to dry out and have as sponges for another form of something that we can be self-sufficient in and not have to buy produce and create ourselves. These have been quite difficult to get going this year, and as you can see, I've got an empty space here, and just in the last few days, I think it was the woodlice again had munched through the stem of what was obviously a weaker plant, and yeah, over the last few days that one has died off. But I've got another two in here, again along with another nasturtium which is popping up. Watermelons, more of the beautiful yard-long cucumbers, and yeah, like I say, these are they just grow like fury at this time of year. I think last year by the end of July we were harvesting, so yeah, it shouldn't be long we should have our first yard-long cucumbers. Again, some self-seeded borage that you'll notice dotted around. I have to control it a bit because if you know borage, it grows really big. It's a big brute and its leaves are slightly rough, so I'd like to be careful with it closer to some of the tender plants, and we don't want it to take the light or smother them away. So yeah, I kind of keep it under control a bit, but its flowers are beautiful. Again, we use the flowers on top of salads, and we actually had some on top of our pasta and pesto that we had for dinner last night. Here, these little babies that look like a bit of a bad hair day, a bit like my hair first thing in the morning. These are cucumber melons, and yeah, I'm not sure, I probably should be trying to tidy those up a little bit, but yeah, I think we'll just leave them be and let them do their thing. And they're like a really small, kind of like an egg shape, and they look like watermelons on the outside, but they taste and grow more like a cucumber. So if you haven't had those, they're really cool. Probably kids would love them. You could put them in lunch boxes, and yeah, kind of good fun. So we like our cucumber melons. More yard-long cucumbers. This run here is jalapeno peppers, or jalapeno peppers. And yeah, they've struggled again, like all of them. You can see these ones are much smaller here. We actually lost a few, so I had a few gaps here. So we did actually buy a couple of plants in just to fill the gaps, which I don't like to do that unless I have to, but if there's space in the polytunnel, we may as well utilise it and maximise the yield from our space as much as we possibly can. And then I've got 5 cucumber plants here, and this is a variety that I'm trying for the first time this year. I think it was called Tamara, and it grows quite a small, compact cucumber, but we've picked our first 2 from one of the plants up there just the other day, and they were really nice, thin-skinned, really crisp, nice and sweet. So looking forward to getting some good crops off of these this year, hopefully very soon. We're a little bit late with getting some things like this started. We could have, if we had a hotbed or more heat facilities, we could have got things like this started a lot sooner, which would obviously in turn mean we were cropping sooner. But yeah, we're just working with what we've got right now and improving on everything each year. Here on this side, here you can see the holy basil, the Tulsi. It is a bit more of a mature plant. This was from one of my earlier sowings. So there's another run of the Tulsi up here. And very soon that will get this beautiful, delicate purple flower head on the top, much like when mint flowers. In fact, I think the Tulsi is closer related to mint than it is to basil. The seeds are certainly very similar to, or very much like mint seed as well. And then I think pretty much finally for this tunnel, another new first time grower for us this year is these okra plants. And they grew really strongly from seed. They jumped into life within days of me planting the seeds, and yeah, it's a big seed. And then they did, maybe I planted them out a bit too soon, again, you know, new to us, but they then struggled. When I first put them into the polytunnel, they did struggle for a few weeks. We've got 4 of them here. 2 of them are still quite small, but they have settled in now. Like I said, I haven't grown them before, so not sure how big the plant should actually be, but you can see that we've got some fruits coming on them here, so we're going to have to learn about how to use those in the kitchen and enjoy a really wide variety of fresh homegrown goodness from our polytunnels.
Alright guys, and now we check out polytunnel number 2, we call T2. So as Laurie mentioned on the first one, had to do this little modification to these here because, believe it or not, before I got involved with growing, I didn't realise rabbits could jump so high, and I just had this wooden kind of like step over piece here in before, and believe it or not, he jumped over that, and then he tried to dig under it. So I've had to bury some chicken wire in the bottom here, which goes under and in an L shape. You can actually see where they've been in digging again. So that stops them going under. And then this netting here, I basically just kind of clamped it between 2 bits of wood there, and then I've just made it so it kind of slots in, so it kind of locks itself. So unbelievable what you've got to do to try and keep some of these things out of the crops, but it's got to be done, otherwise they seem to get everything. Right, if you'd like to step in, roll this up for you.
Thanks.
Okay, it's just starting to warm up in here now. It's around about 8 o'clock in the morning. It gets like almost to 40 degrees plus by sort of 9 o'clock, so we wanted to get this done early. So following on from Laurie's first tunnel here, in the 4 corners we have the Cape gooseberries, and these are really beautiful tomato relative, actually perennial in the tunnels here, so we don't have to start them every season like you do tomatoes. Next to that, something we're trying for the first time properly is these, is it tomatillos?
Tomatillos.
Tomatillos, yeah. Yes. And these are another tomato relative, and they basically grow in these same little, if you can get the camera in here, these kind of like, they look like little snake egg type lanterns, which is the same as the Cape gooseberries, but this is actually an annual version, and these are meant to have more of a, instead of a fruity taste, more of a savoury kind of taste that you might have with a salad or something, which is really cool. So excited about those. Coming down the line a little bit here, Under each of these hoops that come down into the ground, I've got watermelons planted. And this first one isn't a great example there because these had actually bushed out massively, these tomatillos. So I've actually trained them now into standards because there was no light hitting the floor at all before. But this one down here is a little bit bigger. And as Laurie mentioned, these are all of our own saved seeds from last year, because watermelons, they are in their own basically subfamily of melons. They don't cross-pollinate any other melons. So those ones we can collect our seed off. But coming down here as well, we've also got some of the, what are these called again, Laurie?
Yard-long cucumbers.
Yard-long cucumbers. Yard-long cucumbers. We tried these last year and they are absolute monsters. So they start to grow in these massive, long, really fistuled kind of cucumbers. They look so tropical and they're beautiful, beautiful. We love them just as much as normal cucumbers now. More, yeah, and they store really well. On top of the what are they called again?
Yard-long cucumbers.
Yard-long cucumbers. My brain is gone today, I've just had my breakfast. But on top of those, we're also growing 3 varieties of Cantaloupe or Cantaloupe melons this year as well, which I'll talk about in a second. So follow me down. Before we get to that, something even more exciting again, we've got the Trombone courgettes. Been wanting to grow these for a few years. I was gutted last year because I got seed and none of them germinated. But this year they have. And check this out, some of these beauties are starting to form up already, and these come into massive long, they literally do look like trombones. And one of the really special things about these is that you can use them as a summer or a winter squash. So in other words, in the UK we'd call these courgettes normally, and they're normally the plants that kind of just stay quite small and compact like a bush. Whereas this grows like a squash, but it starts to fruit early and you can harvest these as courgettes and use them fresh. But you can also leave them on to store over winter and they become like your winter squashes. So amazing versatility, and they seem to be doing really well in the crazy heat we've been getting in these tunnels. So coming down again, there's a few, and I think this is just variation between seedlings, and possibly some may have dried out at times when they're in the little plugs, so some just don't have the vigour as others, but we've got some real beauties here coming on well. Beautiful flower on this one here, such a stunning little star shape, like a starry night. And I love how they've got the kind of white mottling on the leaves as well, very beautiful. That's not mildew or anything like that, it's just a natural coloration. So as we continue down here, we've got more of the trombones, and then we start to get into our first Cantaloupe melons here. And again, these are kind of varying in vigour as well. And what I do, once they get to about this stage and you start to have all these little arms coming off, my preferred method is to grow 4 stems on instead of just 1. And then I'll select one good one like this that's closest to my first one, begin to wrap it round, do the same for these others, and then the ones that I don't want, for example if it's put out 2 or 3 more, I'll just snip these ones off and then keep my 4 going up as we go, and I can prune them as they grow on. And this is the second year that we've had all of this wood chips down in here, and all I've done this year is just added some compost around each plant. So I haven't added new mulch, haven't fully composted this, just literally pulled back the wood chips, added some handfuls of compost around each plant as we've planted them. Bottom here as well, another Cape gooseberry, so we've got 1 in each corner. And then we've got these beautiful marigolds that we grow all the way up in between our tomatoes every year as a bit of a companion, the French ones. And these tomatoes here, I always joke that Laurie stitches me up because she's got these lovely vine growing ones, yet I've got these bush ones which are just, every time I seem to come in here they've got like 100 new side shoots on, and it takes a real lot of time to to side shoot them all the time, but they do have these beautiful big bracts of flowers coming off. And these ones at the bottom of the tunnel here are actually quite a late sowing. The ones up the other end were a little bit earlier. So come down, we'll check them out a bit more. It kind of, a bit of repetition along this section here with the marigolds and the tomatoes. But then we have here some beautiful, beautiful, you're gonna have to remind me the name of these again, Kenny.
Yard-long beans.
Yard-long beans. We've got 2 yard-longs. So this is the yard-long beans. And this is a Asian type of beans, I believe. And again, they're amazing. This is a red variety and they grow literally a yard long and they just hang down. And the deep, like ruby colour of them just looks stunning, hanging down like this. And they grow really well in the tunnel. I think they're quite a heat-loving plant, so probably best for one if you have a greenhouse. Although we would like to try some outdoors, to be honest with you, as well. More tomatoes. Sometimes I come in, there's just been new plants dotted in here. So Laurie's been coming in and planting some of her basil in here. We've been enjoying a lot of the pesto. We've got a video, probably the last one that just came out, on the homemade pesto, and it really is delicious. So I've never been a fan of stuff like this before I met Laurie, but I'm getting into it more. Okay, so yeah, some of these tomatoes are a bit further on than the others, but they've got lovely big bracts of tomatoes and flowers coming on them, which is great. Some of the basil down this end is a bit further on and it started flowering, but we've been using it. Lovely. And then for our final side down here, just very excited as always, because we have along the back here, I don't know if you can just see, growing basically every foot or so along the back of the tunnel, I planted some Burgard slips of sweet potatoes. We find those to really only perform inside the tunnels for us. So I can't remember how many there is, but there's a lot there. Probably there's got to be 30 or so plants along there, and they're a really good evergreen, or they would be evergreen in the tropics, but they grow like an evergreen ground cover underneath our melons here. So the idea is that we prune these up. Don't know if you can see these stems. So as time goes on, I'll clear a bit more of this foliage coming up here. So the sweet potatoes, as you can see, meander their way under, and they create this lovely carpet underneath, and they still get light because we prune the melons up. And we're growing 3 different types of melons this year. We're growing the Charentais, which is a beautiful French variety, the most amazing flavour you'll ever taste. They're a slightly later one. We're growing the Minnesota Midget, which is an early, and these are both Cantaloupe Melons, and the Minnesota Midget is very early compared to the Charentais, so it kind of extends the season. We've got one other variety we're trying new this year, which is the Woman's Cantaloupe, it's called. So that's a bit of a new one to us, so we'll see how that performs, but it came recommended, so that is something exciting. Now, something else, just, yeah, it's going to be quite exciting again. We've got a whole row here of different chilies. So my mate Dave gave these to me. He's a bit of a chili enthusiast. So we got the first one here called Tropical Heat. Moving down the line, we've got this one, actually comes with a caution label. It's called Carolina Reaper, and he said that this, up until recently, was like the spiciest one in the world. So I'm not even really into the mad spicy chilies, but you know, we'll give it a go. It's a bit worrying, but we'll see what happens. This one sounds quite mischievous. We've got the Devil's Brew here. Got one forming up on there already. And then we've got lemon pepper. That one does sound nice. Very exciting. Bit of sweet potato coming out here. And you can harvest these tips just for stir fries and stuff. Give them a little cook, and they're very highly nutritious. What have we got here then? This is the chocolate pepper. So we've got lemon pepper and chocolate. This is the Biquingo Red Hot. Wow. Don't know if you want to get a picture of that. Biquino? Maybe some kind of Mexican. And then we've got the hot curry. Everyone loves a bit of curry, so we'll see. And if you come in and check this out actually, on this melon plant, so you've got your main stem coming up here. And then from these little side shoots in the middle here that come out, you then get flowers which seem to be the female flowers which start to get the fruits on. So once these develop, I then cut off past that point, which will allow the energy to go into this more, just let it swell up. And then some of them you see down here, like this little yellow one, the plants just seem to like self-terminate some of them, so that can just be cut off because that's just going to fall off anyway, that one. Now, this one here, jalapeno. See, this is the one we normally grow, and he's actually labelled this one as mild, so that's normally quite hot for me, a jalapeno. If I ever have a curry, I have like a korma or dansak, so like the creamiest, less spicy ones. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for the digestion this year. This one here, I had a space, so I saw it the other day and I was quite excited. It's called Hot Banana. It was only like £1, so I thought, oh, I've got to get it. And these will turn red. They start off bright yellow, they were last week, and then they turn red. So another exciting one. So here is some more melons as we come down, the various varieties. These again are a little bit behind some of the ones at the other end, but we've got one down here forming up nevertheless. And another thing I like to do with these is actually leave some to form immediately at the bottom of the plants, and on other vines upprune them like I said, so you can basically get kind of earlier and late of the same variety as well, which I think is quite cool. And then here's a good example of our sweet potatoes, the Burgard, growing all along the back here. And we're finding, guys, I'm sure you found the same, the temperatures have been absolutely crazy. It's set to be 31 degrees here over the next few days, and that's not in the tunnel. So like we're really finding we have to be out of this thing by like 7:30 in the morning, and we can't come back in again till probably 8:30, 9 in the evening to water. So it's pretty intense. It's actually really hot now already. So same again along here really. We've just got our Burgards, sweet potatoes coming along with different varieties of melons, and ending it up here with our Cape Gooseberry again. And here's a good example, I can show you one. So they've got those same kind of like, actually here's a good one. They've got those same kind of umbrella like
lanterns.
Lantern like covers to the fruits, and they form inside there, and they look like little tomatoes really, but these are really like fruity and just this slightly acidic punch to them, and they're lovely, really nice chopped up in a salad actually. Anyway, we've got a few things going on in our third tunnel, so we'll go and check that out now. Alright guys, and welcome to the third polytunnel. And this one, as you can see, not much going on in it in terms of the others, because this is going to be a bit of a future project. We've been using it for a bit of storage and stuff right now. But I wanted to utilise it a little bit this year before we get going with that work, because the space is here and it gives us this beautiful extended growing season. So I had a lot of sweet potatoes spare this year. So I thought, why not give some a go in pots? So I've done a mixture of black pots and then some lighter coloured ones as well. And they've actually been bursting well ahead of the ones planted in the ground in the other tunnel and planted in the ground outdoors. Although I have noticed the last few days in these temperatures that have just been in excess of 40 degrees in here, they've been shrivelling up, not even because they're drying out so much, but they're just not loving the kind of intense heat, probably around the roots as well. So it's a bit of a challenge, but they kind of close up a bit during the day and then they kind of open up in the evening again. We're trying to keep them well watered, but water is an issue for us this year because we're just not getting any rainfall and unbelievable heat, so we're having to water, yeah, probably a little bit more than normal, and we're just not getting the rain to top up our tanks, unfortunately. But nevertheless, we're hoping to get some good success from these. These are all Molokai purple down this side, which are ones that don't really have good yields for us either in the tunnel in the ground normally or outdoors. So I thought having them in the pots just might give them that extra bit of heat to form up really big, because I've seen them get really big abroad. So that's the aim of that. And what our overall plan is in here, to have this as just a stunning, basically like tropical house. It's going to have this nice meandering path down the middle, which will be kind of like nicely done with rocks. Then we're going to have citrus trees, all sorts of things like turmeric, bananas, you name it really. It's going to be very exciting, and then have some like melons and stuff growing up the middle. So very excited to show you guys the process when we begin that. Coming down here, a bit like the other tunnels, this is extra plants that we didn't put in. So we've got more watermelons here, we've got more, I think this one is one of the yard-long cucumbers here, a few of those. And then if you want to follow me down here, we've got some more tomato plants, which, as you can see, the health and vigour is nothing to those in the ground, because it's a bit of a challenge in here because these are probably drying out much more than they should be. So we can't water them every day, unfortunately. But coming to the back here, we have jujubes, or the Chinese date, and I've had these in the ground outdoors for a few years now. They've been flowering but haven't fruited yet, and you need a pollination partner with these. So I've got this one here called Lang and another one next to it called Li. Li is not looking too good, unfortunately, because I only just planted this one last week. I transplanted it, and I know it's a terrible time to dig it up in the summertime, but I did it. It's dropped quite a lot of its leaves, but they are perking up again now. They're quite tough old things, these. The ungrafted ones are really spiky little like thorny bushes, so they're kind of the thing that would grow on rough ground. What makes them amazing is that they form into little dates which you can leave to dry on there, and then they're meant to be really sweet and beautiful, like in a way like normal dates. So it's kind of a way to have another type of fruit that you might normally have to buy in from abroad in the UK. Down here we've got a little lemon tree. I picked this one up in a garden centre, I think it was a couple of seasons ago, and I just wanted to leave it in here over winter just to see whether it would survive, whether it would completely defoliate, because we do still get frost in here, and it seems to be fine. So it gives me high hope in the future that we can get some proper cultivated varieties and may have a chance of getting some fruit. Try some grapefruits maybe. I've always been interested in growing some blood orange as well, which would be mental. Down here we have some pomegranates, and these are growing. If you look down here, there's the remains of what was a standard stem, and these were bushes or standard trees that I bought from kind of an online mail order, and they basically both had some kind of like dieback, and they both progressively died back on the stems, but they grew back a lot from the base. So I thought we'll stick these in the tunnel because they need the extra heat really. But a question for you guys, if any of you might know, is do you know if pomegranates are normally grafted? I couldn't find much info on it because this is a kind of like a cultivated variety, so I wanted to know whether these are normally propagated from cuttings or grafted, because if that's been done by cutting, then this should still be the variety that's growing back. So fingers crossed. Coming down here, actually before we go down there, this here is a passion fruit. This is the tropical passion fruit, which I've grown from a seed from a well, not a health food store, but like a grocery store. And it's been really bursting into growth, but then it's stopped the last few weeks. It's kind of looking like the leaves are curling a bit, but it might just be the temperatures again, to be honest. Over here we have feijoas, and this is one, apparently these are cultivated kind of en masse. They're really popular in New Zealand. Laurie was never a fan of them, but I've just, I don't know, ever since I saw them, had a fascination with growing them, and apparently they can grow in fruit in the UK. So I've brought them into the tunnel for just an extra bit of heat, and these have actually been flowering for the first time. Don't know if you can see this. So again, this is something that needs a pollination partner. So this is just an kind of named variety from a garden centre I bought a few years ago. But this one down here is a cultivated variety which is grown commercially, which is called Unique. The name is actually called Unique, and this is a variety from New Zealand. And these flowers are finished now, but I've actually been hand pollinating from this kind of more wild strain onto these, so hopefully we'll get some feijoas here this year. Down here we've got another variety of the jujube, so we'll have 3 types of pollination partner, and this one is called Dong. So we've got Lang, Li and Dong, and that's growing on nicely. Down here we have Musa sycamensis, and this is a beautiful hardy banana, and this one's hardy outdoors as well, so this will be planted out eventually. But this one has got these tiger stripes, and I think it's actually called maybe Bengal tiger potentially, but it's got tiger in the name anyway, so very beautiful. Coming down here again, we've just got some more tomatoes, which I'm sad to say aren't looking all that, but if we get a few fruits of those, then I'll be quite happy. And I think something that this really highlights is that the difficulties and how much extra care stuff in pots need. I've never been a fan of pots actually, I don't like to grow anything in pots, but we just did it this year and we've really seen the difference between the stuff in the ground and in the pots. These here were Cape gooseberries that we had as spares, that we kind of had as overspill. We grew them from seed, so we put them in the pots to have hopefully a additional crop that we could maybe sell some of them, as well as the sweet potatoes. But yeah, it's much more care needed in the pots. Possibly if we had a whole bunch of trays to put under these, but we just don't. These sweet potatoes are the Magasaki, which are another variety that I saved last year and have grown our own slips on again. So that's just another variety in the mix, slightly different colour to the others, so a few different other nutrients in there as well for us, which is very exciting. Now, if we step outside, we have a very cute dog waiting for us here. Her name's Millie, #1 border collie, very, very cute. Very good guard dog as well. Always looking after the crops. As well as having border collies out here, we've also got some of our Molokai purple sweet potatoes, and we decided as a bit of an emergency measure to bring these ones out, so at least we're definitely going to have a bit of a crop if those other ones get frazzed in the crazy temperatures we've got coming up. So we can just keep these out here, give them a water. They should still get the same sun as those in the ground, but a bit more heat because of the black plastic around the roots. So yeah, very exciting, guys. We're also really excited that we've got another small propagation polytunnel coming from Polytunnels, and this is actually a much smaller kind of one you'd have in the home garden, which is going to be perfect for us, just 4.5 metres by 2.4 metres. So we're going to be excited to kind of run you guys through the setting up of that and getting it all ready for our propagation and installing a hotbed. So we've got that coming up as well.
We hope you've enjoyed this video today. As always, don't forget to like and comment on our videos, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. It really helps us to get our content out there and seen by more beautiful garden loving people just like you. We'll catch you here again soon at Freedom Forest.
Yeah, thanks for watching,
plants.
guys. Peace and plants.